For intro, we could just do the Indiana Jones. We could hum the Indiana Jones theme song.
Seems legit.
You'd get sued if that gets too popular.
Right.
Someone would write you
I don't think
That's Rogan every day on the podcast. Ah, we can't show that. We don't want to get taken down from YouTube. But some things they can show. I don't know what his
Really?
producer guy always knows like what it can.
Dude, you've been talking about it so much, I gotta start listening to it.
I don't know if you like it. He swears a lot. He's not very Christian. He's not an atheist though.
What is he?
We could,
It's kind of I don't know.
we should do like a
He's a
rebuttal.
pothead.
We should do a rebuttal to Roasted Christian
But
Swearing
he's really in shape
podcast.
and really motivated. He's weird.
I've listened to him a little bit.
Oh, he's fun. What now?
Since you've been telling me
Said
about
we
it.
should do a rebuttal to the Roasted Christian Swearing podcast.
Oh, no swearing.
Yeah, it's bad. Be self-controlled.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good at not swearing when I'm around other people.
Are you
I
a
swear
closet
more-
swearer?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Or around my wife, so I feel comfortable.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Does your
huh?
wife find it like comical
Are we recording
this on?
when
already?
you swear?
Is this
Or-
on?
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, we're recording already?
Welcome to the Cowboys and Unicorns podcast. We're here, not live, with Michael Klim, David Swedburg, and myself, Dan
Yellow.
Tiernan.
It is.
Yeah, no, I'm a little bit of a closet swearer.
Okay.
What does that mean, a closet swearer?
Not in public, not
in
for the world to
public?
see.
I don't
Behind
think I've
closed
ever
doors.
I've ever heard you
Instead of singing
Yeah.
in the shower, Dan swears in the shower.
No, I'm not that angry.
I always hear like DJ here swearing, right? And then it's like always,
Oh man.
you know, I don't know, I gotta beat some Christian values into that guy.
I like how you say you have to beat them into him. I think that goes hand in hand with Christian values for sure.
Michael, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I came from Germany over to this beautiful country about 3.5 years ago.
Really? It's only
I
been
did.
that long?
Yeah, 3.5 years.
All right.
I'm actually, I was just talking about it with my wife today.
Why'd you come over here?
And well, Shaylin, my wife, she missed home, so we lived over in Germany for 8 years, man, or something like that.
Wow.
7-8 years.
Oh, okay.
So did she move over right after you guys got married? Or were you here for a little bit?
Yeah, we got married, and our plan was to stay over there. Oh, stay here, you know. We got married here in Morris, and we wanted to stay here, but with the visa situation, didn't work out for me.
Oh.
So yeah, it's kind of a weird story because we thought that would work out, you know. We thought that once I get married to her, then I would automatically, because she's an American
Right,
citizen.
and I thought
Right.
that's how it worked.
Yeah. So I came here with a 3 months visa. You know, I just came here. They gave me a stamp, and I thought, you know, we can just stay here, extend it or change it around or whatever.
Uh-huh.
But they said that, and I don't know how the laws are these days, right? But back then they said, you know, if you would have met the girl here in America, so it's I would have went on vacation, right?
Okay, right. Yep.
And met her, got married within the 3 months, then I could have gotten a visa. But since I came here with the intent to get married, I had to get back. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, it really sucked because, you know, we planned to stay here and all that stuff. Pat, our pastor, he gave us a little apartment down in the basement of the church. And yeah, but then reality hit, and we had to go back to Germany, and I started working at flipping burgers, and she didn't speak a single word of German. Well, she did speak a little bit. I mean,
How did the laws work for her back in Germany of like being your wife, and then
Well-
was she on what was the visa situation for her?
well, that's actually kind of funny because when I came here, I mean, it was about a year process for me to get the visa or to the green card.
Okay.
So you know, I had to apply, and I had to go to the doctors and all. Like they had like in Germany, they have like only 3 or 4 doctors that you can go to, like in all of Germany.
Oh,
you
wow.
know? So I had to like travel like 5 hours to get to the doctor. And so the whole thing. I mean, they know everything about me right now. There's no secrets, nothing. And it took about a year.
Okay.
And but the whole time, even they said, even when you go to the customs, when you want to cross the border, they can still send you home.
Yeah.
Like until the end, there's no guarantee that I would actually like enter the United States.
Like even with your green card and
With
everything?
the green card, with everything.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
I had to. The funny thing, they had a letter that they gave me. With a bunch of formulas. I was not allowed to look into it, so it was sealed, and I was not allowed to look into it.
Huh.
And they gave me that. They gave me, my passport. In there was like a temp visa, that I would enter. I could enter the country, and then they gave me a CD with a picture of my lungs.
Huh.
Weird.
No kidding, yeah. I don't know. I mean, they never told me what that was for, or what, but I had to have that with me when I entered the country.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah. So, so that was the whole process for me. Now, to get back to your question, with my wife, like they had no idea, right? We just came into Germany. We went to the immigration office, and we had our marriage license with us.
Mhm.
And I told the lady, we got married in the States. That's my wife. I want I wanted to stay here. So she was like, okay, just wait over there in the, in the waiting room for like, half an hour or something like
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, sure. So we're like, that'll be crazy. I don't know what hoops we have to jump through, right?
Right.
Yeah.
They're gonna
And then-
send your wife
Yeah,
back and
yeah,
keep
I
you
know.
in Germany.
So we're like nervous and everything. And then she comes out and she's like, okay, here's a 2-year visa. She has a working permit.
Oh wow.
And the only thing that she has to do is she has to do a German course. Financed by the German government, by the way.
Oh, nice.
So it was free.
So it took half an hour.
Half
and you
an
got
hour.
all that.
Yeah.
She gets paid to learn your language.
Exactly.
Wow.
Wow.
So that was a good deal for us.
How long was the German course?
It was about half a year.
And then
So she went like 2-3 times a week or something like that, for 4 hours.
So did she actually learn like fluent German
Mhm.
in that?
Yeah, right now she speaks perfect German.
how long did it take her?
Well, she always tells a story that, or she always says that, the actual grammar and all that stuff was good, the school.
Yeah.
But what really helped her, and that's what she says, is to get yelled at in German in her first job. She was like,
Learn it by
she-
fire.
Yeah, she was cleaning rooms,
Okay.
Yeah.
in a hotel.
Yeah.
And she did it for about a year. And her bosses, the people who would like come and check her rooms, they'd always come and they were like, you gotta clean this, you gotta clean that, and they were yelling at, and she didn't know, like, they were using words that she didn't know.
Right. That sounds super stressful.
Yeah, it was, man. It was. So, but she actually got me a job later there. I was flipping burgers,
Uh-huh.
and then she started working there.
Yeah.
And I was working for $6 an hour, and then she's like, "Yeah, come over there. I got, working conditions are better and stuff like that."
Yeah.
Because we had a fight over there at Burger King. At least once a month, like literally fist fights,
Wow.
So she was
Whoa.
like, yeah, that's a bad environment. So let's come over to my job. I was like, yeah, sure. So they started paying me $7.50, and I felt
Okay.
over the moon.
$7.50.
Wow.
My first job ever, I started at $6.15. Was
Yeah. My first
But-
job was, I think it was the minimum wage they'd pay me was $7.25, but they said because I had a paper out before that, they'd give me a dime more and make it $7.35 to start working at McDonald's as a teenager.
yeah. I was working at this gas station bait shop, and they like literally gave dime raises.
Really?
Right.
Like, how in the world do you pull off giving a dime raise? But I mean, I guess as a 14, 15-year-old kid,
Right.
I was like,
You can't really complain.
sweet, I'm getting a raise.
Yeah.
I'm in the workforce.
like doing the math. But I work 40 hours a week. I'm making 10 cents more an hour. How much more do I make in a year?
When can you start working? At what age in Germany? Like, what are the child labor laws and stuff?
Well, Let me see.
You start working at 3.
You can work a certain amount until you're like 16, I think.
Okay.
You
so
know,
probably like
it's
similar
probably
to the
similar.
US?
Like, yeah, I don't know exactly.
It's kind
what
of
it
hard
was
to
like
get a
here,
job
but-
if you're 14 or 15 in America.
Yeah,
You kind of
yeah.
have to have an in with a family or
right.
somebody who's or in kind of a small business who's like
Yeah,
willing.
small town, it's easier to do, right? I
Right.
mean, like,
Yeah,
where
like
I
work for a
was-
farmer or something like that, huh?
Well, like I worked for a gas station. I started when I was 14, but I mean, my best friend who was 16 at the time, he worked there. His older brother worked
Mhm.
there,
Yeah.
and then
Right.
it's a small town. Like the town I grew up in was 300 people was the population. So
Yeah.
like, you know everybody. Your dad's one of the pastors in town.
Mm.
Like,
you grew up in Minnesota, right?
when I was 9, I moved to Minnesota. I was
No.
born
Oh,
in
California, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But basically, like, I don't really remember much
Mm.
of California. That was, I mean, from 9 on is probably when you
Are you
grow
gl-
and develop
Mm.
the
Are you
most.
glad you moved to Minnesota? Is it like, are you happy or do you
Mm.
ever sometimes wish or wonder like, what would your life would have been like if you?
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting question. Like, we had super good friendships in California. Like,
Okay.
my my godparents or god family. Like, I had their son. My god brother was like a year younger than me. We were best friends, and like,
Okay.
I had all sorts of friendships. So then when you're 9 and you move somewhere new, yeah, it was rough. But I also like Minnesota weather. Like, I've gone
Mm.
back to California and I'm like, this is too freaking hot. Like, I don't love the big city. So like,
right.
all in
right.
all, I think Minnesota's been good for me. But
Mm.
it's kind of hard. I mean, like, probably would be different if I moved here when I was 15, 16, and I'd actually like really had good memories and like
Right.
had grown up and developed some while I was
Your formative
there.
years.
It's like
Mm.
all my formative years were here, so I
Mm.
don't remember much there anyways. So
What's the
Mm.
weather like in Germany compared to Minnesota?
Um,
Aren't we
You
on
know,
similar like lines of latitude?
is.
Or?
It is, I mean, here it seems like the summers are hotter and longer,
okay.
and the winters are colder.
Okay.
I mean, there in Germany, it's. I would say it's a lot more rain.
Okay.
a lot rainier,
but a little more temperate.
a little more what?
Temperate,
What
just
does that
kind of
mean?
like, just kind of like more middle of the road.
Yeah,
Not
middle
middle
of the
of the
road,
road,
yeah,
not as
yeah.
like it
extreme.
gets to the 80s, but then it only gets down to
The 40s or
40s.
high 30s
Yeah,
or something in
yeah,
the winter.
exactly. Yeah.
like
yeah.
kind of like Tennessee. I used to live
Yeah,
there. I
it's-
loved it.
You loved it?
Oh yeah. if I was ever gonna move, I'd move
Somewhere
back
else?
to Tennessee.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nashville or somewhere else?
Well, I was in Franklin, which is a suburb, like the
Okay,
uppity.
right.
It's the uppity Christian, like where all the contemporary Christian music is
Mm.
recorded. All those artists live in Franklin, and then like the country artists are all in Nashville, basically. But
I heard Nashville is up and coming, huh? Especially with like podcasts and online business and all that kind of
There's-
stuff. Huh?
yeah, there's a lot going on there. I think I listen to this music podcast called The Local Wave of this guy who's down there in Nashville, and one thing they talk about is it's just like there's literally no one in Nashville who actually was born and raised in Nashville.
Huh. So it's a bunch of people who move there because it's
Exactly. So
Nashville?
you just get it's like this creative hub. It's like all these people who are going to chase their dreams.
Huh.
And like maybe they burn out on the music thing, but they're creatives, so then they start up their own,
Business or
small
something.
business, start making things. There's some really cool pipe makers down there, all over in Nashville, and
Hmm.
yeah,
It's
it's
funny,
just
it's-
a creative community basically.
That's how Balloon was too. You
Yeah.
know, like really artsy, really, and
Right.
it was the same thing like you just said, like that people they're not born there, they move there.
Right. It's like everyone turns 18, packs all their stuff in their car, and they go pursue the dream of being a musician
Exactly.
they've had their whole
Yeah,
life.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, once you're there, if you've been there long enough, even if you're not making it as a musician, like, okay, I'm going to figure out something that I can still pursue and be passionate
Yeah.
about.
Yeah, that's cool.
Generally, you stay there. But
Yeah.
Are there were there like locals there who like would be annoyed or not enough that they'd have a voice maybe?
yeah, I mean, the whole culture of Nashville, like, it doesn't feel big city. Like, there's not really any tall buildings.
Okay.
It's like if you drive into Nashville, like there's not really a cityscape to Like there's the one building, I forget what it's called. But like there's one big building that's like the signature building. Otherwise, like it's not like Minneapolis where you're like skyscrapers and like
Right.
it's not like you know you see people with Minneapolis tattoos of like the skyline, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't get a Nashville tattoo because it's basically just like Music Row, which is like where all
gotta
the
put down the
recording
words
studios
Nashville.
are. Yeah, like Music Row. So that's like big, huge downtown Nashville where every recording studio is. In my head, I'm like, it's gonna be just all these huge buildings, you know, just like super fancy. It's actually like literally hundreds of houses, like residential looking homes that have been made into recording studios.
That's interesting.
Like, so you drive down that street and it looked like you're driving down Morris. It's just all these different houses, but every single one's a recording studio. Like there's churches, but they're recording studios. So it's weird. It'd be like driving down like California here in Morris, and you see all these houses and the churches, but they're all recording studios. It's it's nothing that you would really envision it to be, but it's pretty cool. So yeah, it's a really laid back culture. Like
that's interesting.
Doesn't feel big city. I don't know.
How many people? What's the population of Berlin?
3.5 million people.
3.5 million.
That's just a couple.
Yeah, just a few.
So
there's no central point though. You know, I mean, it's almost like there are like 7 or 8 different areas just put together. You know, because so many people. You know, and so many.
Right.
That it's so big that it's not really like there's not really like a city center. You know, I mean there is. And it's literally called center, the district. Okay. It's called center.
Yeah. Okay.
Mitte. And
what's the German word?
Mitte.
Mitte?
Mitte, yeah.
Okay.
And but you know, no matter which district you go, I mean, they all have their own like area where you know you can go to, and you know that it's famous for. So, and people know that, you know, and I mean, it's very, very localized, you know. I remember then we were talking about like, you know, the beers in Germany. And like in America, you have like, you know, you have like one brand and you can get it anywhere you want in the States.
Right.
Right. Whereas in Germany, it's very localized, you know, people are like, yeah, that's my beer. I only drink that, right? And it's only available in that area.
There's not the same distribution.
So it's not like you go there and you're like, I know there's Blue Moon, and there's Bud Light and Miller Light, and like these.
You have a few, you know, they're like, you know, I mean, I don't know if you guys know Beck's.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's, you know, you can get that anywhere. Right. You know, I mean, there are a couple of them.
There's a couple.
Yeah. One famous one is called the Desperados.
The Desperados.
And it's a beer with tequila in.
Oh, wow.
And you can get that in any bar you go, no matter where you go in Germany.
Is it good?
It is good. Yeah, people like it a lot. I drink it a lot.
I'm not a huge fan of tequila, so.
Yeah, you should still try it. I mean, it doesn't taste like tequila.
Okay.
It's still like it tastes like beer, but it's I don't know. It has this nice little kick to it.
Is there a place you get it around here?
I've never seen it. No.
Okay.
I've never seen it.
So you're saying I have to go to Germany?
Probably, yeah. Yeah. All you need to tell me next time I
Vacation
go
with your
there.
wife to Berlin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For a beer.
Is the
She might not be too psyched about that.
So, honey, I planned this vacation for us, me, and
we're gonna drink lots of beer. Like I'm gonna drink the beer. Yeah.
You should go. I mean, your kid can go for free in the airplane until 2. It's hard to travel with kids, though, man. I tell you.
Oh man, we had a flight when I went to Africa, and we were coming back. And there was this brand new newborn that just screamed.
Oh no!
The entire 8 hours from Nairobi to Zurich, and it was just like,
that's rough, man. That is rough.
Yeah, like miserable. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be like that. Would be so stressful to be that parent.
Yeah.
And like
Ruining everybody else's flight.
there's a couple people who would probably be nice, but just about everyone else just.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, my baby's screaming here because I want it to, and I'm really enjoying this.
Yeah,
People are so easily annoyed when they're
not very
when
sympathetic.
they're flying.
That was us though when we flew to Germany, and it was luckily the short flight. So we flew from here from Minneapolis.
Yep.
We flew over to Chicago, I think. And our little one Zoe back at that time.
Yeah.
She was like, I mean, like a year old or something.
Okay.
And she didn't like the takeoff, you know. And she was screaming and screaming. and my wife, she had this bag, and she packed it all perfectly, and she had all the baby stuff in there and all these kind of things. And I had that bag, right? So I was rolling with it and stuff, and I didn't know because I was stressed and stuff like that. So I took it, and then the plane was like overbooked, right? There was too many people in there.
Dang.
And so and it never happened to me before, but that time they said that a bunch of hand luggage they had to take and put on a different plane. So they asked me, right, can we take that? So I was like, yeah, sure, here, take it.
No,
so I sit down.
Bag?
It was all the baby stuff, man.
Oh,
it was all the Kindle and all this entertainment stuff, right? So I sit down and Shannon's like, hey, where's that bag? I'm like, yeah, I just gave it to them. And she's like, what? You got? And she's like starting to scream at me in the plane. I mean, literally, I've never seen her like that. I'm like, I don't know if I even should.
Right.
But it's not like we're recording, right?
On this podcast.
That's her goal.
That's stressful, though.
I mean, it was my mistake, right? It was my mistake.
Totally.
Right.
It was my mistake. So
man.
I'm like, is that really that bad? And she's like, yeah, it's all my stuff in there, blah, for the baby. And she's already screaming, right? I'm like, oh. And we didn't even take off it. And I'm already stressed out, right?
Oh, no.
So I go back to the lady, right? And I'm like, hey, we got to get that bag back. And she's like, okay, I got to talk to the pilot and blah, 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 and they talked and like plane got delayed and all that stuff. She comes back to me and she's like, no, we can't get that back.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, oh, no, oh, no.
Oh, man.
So, yeah. So, but I mean, luckily the long flight, it was better.
Okay.
Oh, it was better. It was better because Shaylin and the baby were on a different flight. So,
oh, you were
we're on a different flight. It was cheaper. We saved $1,000, man. So, yeah, but once she'll tell me, I mean, the baby was fine. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not
So the
that
moral of
bad.
the story is, if you're doing an international flight with your wife and your baby, make sure they're on a different flight than you. It'll go
and
fine.
you can sleep on your flight.
So we haven't really mentioned this, but since the last podcast, David has a child.
I'm now
It's
a
a
father.
cute little girl.
Remy, right?
Remy. Yep.
What-
Remy Maria.
Remy Maria Swedbug.
Sweat daddy.
Yep.
So what's that like? You're 2 weeks in. Maybe you haven't had time to think about it, or maybe it's starting to hit you. I don't know.
Yeah, like this morning was pretty rough. Like I was up every time she eats like every 3.5 hours.
Okay.
So like
11
o'clock, then 2:30, then like 5:30. So like I was up each of those times. It's like 40 minutes. So then when it rolled around 6:30 to wake up, I was pretty dead. But
Yeah. So does she do that through the day then too? Every 3.5 hours?
like so.
That's just the constant
Yeah,
pace.
when you got a brand new baby, Michael probably
rough.
knows. But
yeah.
I was talking RJ Deutsch. However, we'll edit that out. RJ, your coworker, he told me his baby's like 6 weeks old now and sleeps through the night like till 5 a.m.
That's
so I'm
crazy,
like,
man. That's crazy.
I just have
Hopefully.
to make it another month. And
Maybe. My girl, she was waking up still just last month. She was still waking up 2-3 times,
all right,
man.
stop talking.
And
I need
how
hope.
old? She's 2?
She's 2, yeah. She just turned 2 last month.
Yeah.
So,
Dang.
yeah. So it depends, man. I mean, if you're lucky.
Every kid's probably
Every
way
kid's
different. But
Yeah, my first one, she's a great sleeper, man. You put her to bed,
yeah,
no matter which time, and she sleeps through bomb,
that's awesome.
But she always wakes up at 7, no matter when you put her to bed.
See,
you can put her to bed at 12
That's just
at
like
night.
a built-in alarm clock, though. I'd be okay with that. If it's like, my kid's going to wake up at this time every morning, so I have to be up then. Like,
Yeah.
I can live with
Yeah.
that. It's more like you only sleep 3 hours at a crack, and then you're
Yeah.
up and then sleeping. It's like,
Oof.
you just don't get a good rhythm of sleep.
We could turn this into a parenting podcast.
First, you got to have a kid, Dan.
Yeah, man.
Oh,
you got to
right.
work on that.
Right.
Get on it. Suppose that's kind of harder to
Yeah, a
do
little
right
rough.
now. But
My wife's in Peru studying abroad.
When's she coming back? Couple weeks, huh?
Yeah, I'll see her in a few weeks. She's in Peru right now, and then I'm gonna meet up with her in the Galapagos Islands off of the coast of Ecuador for a week of summer vacation.
Man,
and
it's
then
so cool, man.
we'll be back
That sounds
29th
rough.
of July. Yeah.
really
super hard.
tough life.
No kids.
Yeah,
Cool wife. It's hard, man.
yeah, baby.
The
9 months
sun.
later.
Beaches. Yep, that's the time to do it right there. Oh man. Well, what are you smoking, Michael?
You know, I removed the label earlier.
And you don't know what it was.
I don't know what it was.
Where'd you order it from?
I ordered it from I think it's one of the biggest online retailers. I forgot the
Like
name.
cigars.com or pipes.
No, it's not cigars.com. It was a name. There was a name in the actual URL. David. I forgot.
Was it on
But-
when you Googled it? What page? What was the?
It was
the
one
search
of the
engine?
first ones. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It was one of the first
So
ones.
good SEO.
Good SEO.
Yeah.
Michael's like, the SEO is good, therefore
They must
be good.
Yeah. And they had a pop-up too, Now, of course, like when I signed up right away, and they called me up and they tried to sell me like a subscription, like a cigar subscription.
Oh, like a
Wow.
subscription box? Like
yeah,
it comes,
yeah, you get like every month, whatever you
and you
want.
totally signed up for that, right?
No, I didn't. I told them, nah, man.
So they had it where you put in your info and then they called you. How soon after?
Maybe a week after.
Okay,
Maybe a week
so it's like
after.
they must have like a telemarketing
Yeah, I bet.
built
yeah,
in
yeah.
with
Yeah.
kind of the online thing.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a guy. He knew like how to talk.
Yeah.
He's like, he definitely tried to talk me, and he got me all the way to the guy where he's like, I got to record you, and I was like, no, man, I can't do that. Blah 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 blah. I was like, one of those guys is like, okay, I just gotta like click him away because it's like,
Yeah.
no matter what you
Otherwise
tell him,
he's
it's
gonna-
like, all right, you're gonna buy. Yeah, it's like,
Then I'll
no,
call
man,
you
I can't.
next week. And
Yeah,
like that.
right.
But at the same time, I do appreciate like companies that kind of have, even though they're big distribution companies,
Yeah.
that have some of those like personal elements where it's like they saw that you placed an order and someone actually took the time to like call you and
Yeah.
say, hey,
Yeah.
like,
It's proactive. You can tell they're paying attention to what
Yeah,
you're
man,
doing.
that's true. That's true. And I mean, the offer at I paid like, what was that, $35-$40 or something, and I
Okay.
got like one of those boxes. What do you call them? The those
like a
those
sampler
wood
or,
boxes.
oh yeah, just a box of cigars. Yeah.
Yeah, and in there was like a different like a collection of different cigars.
Variety
Yeah.
pack.
Yeah.
And that was good, man. I mean, I got a lighter too and all that stuff. One of those cutters.
Sweet.
So
Nice.
yeah, man, I'm enjoying them a lot.
Yeah.
I like those thinner ones better, I have to say. I don't like the thick ones so much.
Just because it takes longer to smoke, or
No, I mean I like it. I like it when you can smoke. When you can smoke.
Like, do you
them
like
long.
just a more mild smoke versus a full-bodied smoke, or
I do.
you
I
just
mean,
like
maybe
how they burn?
maybe it was just a cigar that I had. I mean, there were
Yeah.
two, and I didn't like them too much because maybe it was the way I cut it. I don't know. But what I didn't like about it is that the smoke was not so thick, and I found, and maybe it was just a collection, right?
Right.
But the smoke that comes from the longer ones, it seems to be more thicker, and I enjoy that.
Yeah, there's a lot of variables in that, but
right? So
those
what's the-
Lanceros, that's the long, skinny ones, the Lanceros, and
Mhm.
those do generally, I think they have, because they're longer, your smoke kind of cools down, and so
Yeah.
it's a cooler, fuller smoke by the
Mm.
time it makes it all the way through the
Oh, yeah.
cigar. So
What are you smoking, Dave?
I'm smoking the Cinco Vegas. It's the A. It's the limited release. I really like them. They're very smooth, very like a full body, but not too much of the pepper. That's
Okay.
the thing that I hate with cigars is the pepperiness,
Mm.
like that tongue bite that you get. And
Yeah,
Mhm.
like that spicy.
yeah, like I mean, black pepper is like the
Yeah.
best way to describe it. I like full, like it sits on your tongue kind of like black coffee does, like
Mm.
that bitterness at the end, but then like the full creaminess and like the nuttiness, chocolatiness.
Mm. Dude, man,
good.
you're a real expert. I mean,
No,
that's-
No,
It's
not
like-
at all. I've
you're like
just
Tom.
when
just-
we got into cigars, like Gabe, my brother-in-law, and I, we bought, like when we started getting into it, we got a little excessive, and we ended up
Build a
probably
mini
buying.
fridge.
Yeah, we made a mini fridge into a humidor, and we had like 250 cigars.
Whoa!
I remember that.
Yeah,
You guys
like
went
Wow.
hardcore.
and we have since mellowed out a lot.
Yeah.
I like to smoke a pipe better than cigars now, but
Back in your single days.
yeah, single days, no commitments. It was pretty fun, and just doing that, like, and the samplers is a great way. You got to actually read what your band is and kind of keep track of what you like a cigar diary, because you'll find like there's different blends of cigars and there's different. I mean, like Cinco Vegas, like they kind of have really flashy bands, and so like I was like, these look just kind of like cheap and lame and whatever. But overall, I found that they have some really, really quality cigars, and they're not too expensive. So as you smoke them, you'll find what you like.
Right.
But buying all 250 of those, we bought like a bunch of sampler packs and a bunch of different things. And like, actually, once you smoke enough of them, then you're like, oh yeah, I can tell this one is a little more, nutty and chocolatey than that one. And yeah.
How did you make your like the mini fridge into a humidor? Like, what was that process?
I mean, it's not super complex. Basically, all we did is just cleaned it out really good, let it sit, let it dry, and then put cedar planking in there because that holds the moisture well, the humidity. And so then we put the cedar planking in. We bought some of the, whatever you call them, humidifiers, like you got, Michael, with your pack. And then bought just one of the electric sensors that says what the humidity is. And
cool.
let it sit for like a week so that then the wood gets and holds the right humidity.
Right.
And then you just put all your cigars in there. And you just have to watch it and regulate it. Because that's, I mean, cigars can only sit so long before.
Right.
I mean, that affects how they smoke too. Like if it's dry or if it's a little extra wet, and I mean, all those things.
Do you take them out of the package?
Out of like the wrapper?
Yeah, out of wrapper. Yeah.
You can. It
does make a big difference.
No, the only time that it makes, well, the only thing you have to be concerned about is like if you get like actually flavored cigars of any type. So like there's some different cigars like that are aged like with like bourbon or different, chocolates and different flavors to them, and those like will actually affect the flavor of all the other cigars in your humidor. But as long as they're not flavored, then it doesn't matter.
Okay.
They can just be sitting together. The nice thing, if you keep the wrapper, is like it starts to yellow a little bit, because really technically, like we had so many cigars, you let them sit longer and they actually get better because they sit at the right humidity for long enough and they kind of age.
So how long is long enough?
Well, like we bought some really cheap cigars, and they were like $1 a stick, and we just kind of experimented and let them sit for like a year and a half because we had all the other ones. We just smoked all the other ones, and then once we got to those, they were great. Like
fine,
but they were cheap cigars. But
yeah.
I mean, just as enjoyable as any other one.
Did you get those from cigars.com or?
Yeah, that's where we bought them all from then. Now I order everything from pipesandcigars.com just because they have good tobacco selection too.
Good tobacco.
Yep. Wacky tobacco.
So Michael, you spend like you said 8.5 years in Germany.
Yeah.
And then you guys.
Well, with my wife.
Right.
Yeah.
After
I was there before.
Right. Born and raised. Were you lived in Berlin when you were growing up?
Yeah, I was all my life. Yeah.
Okay. Is there a difference in? I can't remember if I asked you this or not. Like the cost of living, or the difference from like Berlin, like the city, to more rural areas?
You gotta imagine. In Berlin, specifically, most people are pretty poor.
Okay.
So you have like you have a couple people who make a good living, of course, but most people are relatively poor, especially compared to American standards.
Well, there's so many. I mean, you said 3 million people
3.5
there.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Yeah, man. I mean, yeah.
So just like the standard of living overall.
The standard of living is I mean, for me personally, right? I mean, I got a degree before I left here, and then I came here and I started working here. So
yeah,
it's different. But even when I first came here, I was working construction.
Yep.
And even the money that I made there, I mean, okay, I got a lot of overtime in and stuff like that, but even the living standards, I mean, I could have still bought a house and all that stuff,
Yeah.
So, when I went back over Christmas this year, and I talked with all my buddies, and I was like, yeah, car and house and all that stuff.
Right.
They were all like, dude, you're like rich.
Yeah.
I mean, no one over there. I mean, if you have a house, a house costs you like, I don't know, like 500,000, a million. I mean, I don't know exactly, but
Right.
they're expensive,
Yeah, it's
Right.
a high cost of entry to get a
Yeah,
house.
yeah.
And do most people just bike or take the
Public transportation.
Yep.
Public transportation is huge. I never had a car until I came here. I never owned a car. My parents, they have a car, right? So I would use it once in a while, but most of the time, everyday stuff, was always public transportation. So and it's all right. Public transportation is nice because you can just go in there, in the morning, you're tired or whatever,
Yeah.
and you just sit down and you just space out. You don't have to worry about the traffic and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So is it like
So-
rails or buses or?
It's everything. It's like, you guys know trams, like these underground underground
Yeah.
trains.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
They have
Kind of
that.
like the light rail down in Minneapolis.
They have that. Yeah.
Similar to that?
They have that. They have undergrounds. They have bus system.
Like the
I mean, you can
subway,
really,
Yeah.
you can really get anywhere. I mean,
Okay.
the buses especially drive even out to remote areas and stuff like that.
Is that
Yeah.
free or do you have to get a
No,
pass?
you have to pay. You have to pay.
Okay,
Yeah. So it's how much? I mean, it's more expensive every year, but
Right.
if you get a pass, it's like 70, 80 euros or something like that per month, and you can drive anything you want.
So do people grow up do you get a license to drive, or do a lot of people not even have a license? They just use public transportation?
It depends. I mean, I got a license. I was 18, but many people, they don't get a license because it's a lot more expensive. So you
Yeah.
can calculate 2,000 euros, which euros and dollars is about the same. I mean, back then the dollar was more. I think these days it's about the same. But what you can get for $1, here it's about the same that
Yeah.
you can buy for €1 in the store. So
Buying
I'd say
power.
it's about the same. So around $2,000 you have to fork out first,
Yeah.
and
And you said that as like a grown adult, you were making $6 at a Burger King.
yeah,
is-
that was I
So-
mean, that was you got to imagine, that was when I'm 32 now.
right.
That was when I was 20, so 10 years ago.
Right, but
22.
people at a McDonald's here make,
More than that.
I know,
12.
and it
and
changed. It's
Not in Morris, but yep.
Okay.
I think at
I heard there was a place in North Dakota that was like starting wage of like $15 an hour at a.
over there when they had
McDonald's.
this huge
the oil
rush.
boom.
Yeah,
right
with the
there,
oil
yeah.
boom and everything.
Yeah,
But-
I think in bigger metro areas you can make more at fast food. I think in rural
Yeah,
areas
you-
it's still pretty low, but
You also have to think though that stuff is a lot cheaper, in Berlin than it is here. I mean, you go to Willie's and stuff. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing like that is that expensive. I've never seen anything like that in Berlin. Like the fancy. I mean, you have
the
like
local
Aldi's and stuff
supermarket
like that.
rips you off.
You have like Aldi's and all that stuff, and that's
Okay.
that's where most people go shopping.
Aldi comes from Germany, right?
Yeah,
That's
it
where-
does. I grew up with Aldi's my
Okay.
whole life,
Oh, neat.
Yeah,
so it's a lot shabby over there. I mean, here it's really nice,
Yeah.
but over there it's pretty shabby.
yeah.
Okay.
Aldi's
So-
relatively new for
Yeah, I
don't
mean,
know,
in the
rural
last
Minnesota.
in the last 3 years or so, is the
They
first
started
times I
popping up.
started hearing about it.
Yeah, but I love it, man. I mean, we go there all the time. I mean,
Yeah,
Yeah, I
buy it.
mean, if you're buying,
we go. We
Just about
spend
anything, it's the-
$200-300 there every time. I mean, so it's
Right.
still worth it.
yeah, surprisingly, it's even more affordable than Walmart for
It is,
most
yeah,
things.
it is,
Most
it
things,
is.
yeah.
So it's a really good deal. And I mean, people they just don't earn so much. I mean, part of it is because of the system that you have there. I mean, here in America you have hardcore capitalism, right? So
right.
you lose your job, you have a problem. But over there, I mean, you start you have like different insurances. When
Okay.
you're out of a job, you go to the government, right?
Mhm.
To the social services or whatever, and you get money like right away. I mean, usually it's like, I mean, if you earned a lot of money and there's a cap, of 2,000 or something like that. But it's an insurance that you have to take, and you get like 80%, 70% or something like that of what you made for like half a year.
Wow.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's nice.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
And then after that you go on social welfare. So I mean, it's not like here. So but someone has to pay for all that stuff, and usually
Right.
people do.
Right.
So you can never get over a certain standard. People are a lot. Even if you're like top manager somewhere, you don't make a lot of money because a lot of the money is taken away from you. So through taxes and all that stuff.
So like taxes are quite a bit higher than they are.
Yeah. If you're poor, you have a great deal. But if you haven't, it's great. Yeah. You get children's money. I don't know if you guys told you about that, Dan. But you get, if you have a kid, you get I think it starts with $150 a month.
Oh,
you get
wow.
free money. Yeah, they transfer it on your account. And then, with each kid, you get even more, I think. So $200 per kid. So some people, if you have 5-6 kids, you don't need to work, man.
From like a macro perspective, how like what's the wealth of Germany compared to other European countries? Like, is it kind of middle of the road, or is it?
I think
rich
Germany as a country is pretty rich. Relatively rich.
in Europe compared to the other ones?
Yeah. They're relatively rich. And it's Berlin, that's relatively poor. You go down to the south. People make more money there. But again, the laws are the same, so there's a cap there too.
Right.
I mean, you have a doctor, and he makes, I don't know. I mean, he probably comes out, he nets out, what he gets on his accounts, like $3,000-4,000,
a month.
Okay.
So, and that's one of the highest you can get.
Right, but I mean, for a doctor, that's really not that much money.
It's not a lot of money,
Right.
No.
Right.
But then again, you have free education, so you don't have a student loan that you have to pay off and stuff like that. Germans like it. I didn't, because it depends what you want to do in life, or how you live your life, I suppose,
Yeah.
Like if you, for example, if you're an entrepreneur, or if you have that mindset,
Yeah.
that you want to go out, start something and all these things, Germany is a bad place for you,
Sure.
America is much better. Now,
Sure.
if you just want to have a steady job,
learn a
if you
trade
don't-
and
learn a trade
have a
and
family and
it's fine. I mean, it depends what you want to do. If security is important to you, and you do have security.
So you moved to America 3 years ago ish?
Yeah, about
Three and a half. And your wife Shaylin wanted to be closer to family. Was that part of it, or?
Yeah, she wanted to be close to family. That's actually one of the main reasons we came here, is so that she's closer to her family.
yeah.
So it was a big deal. I mean, we came here with $1,000 in our pockets.
Wow.
And the $1,000 was only like, it was a parting gift from my parents. So we had no money.
Okay.
And then my parents were like, kind of like, you poor suckers. So yeah, it's $1,000.
Was
Wow.
it a bigger transition for Shaylin to move to Germany and learn the language and live there for 8 years, or do you think it was a bigger transition for, just like personally, for you to come over here and start living in America?
Well, I think a big part of it is that Shaylin didn't speak the language at all.
Right.
Whereas I learned English in school,
Okay.
and I've been here a couple times before. So plus, we had family here and
A little bit more of a support structure.
a little bit more of a support structure. Yeah. So there was, I think it was easier to come here.
Okay. Yeah.
But I mean, for me, there was this culture shock and all that stuff. And the thing is that, for me anyway, it was that you don't expect it so much. Like, I didn't expect to have like that there would be a big difference,
Okay.
But there is, because, we're both Western, civilizations and all that
Right.
stuff. So you don't expect it to be a big difference.
So, like, what were some of the things that were the biggest or hardest things to, like, get used to moving here?
Well, when I first came here, it was all like, everything new and stuff like that. And that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Everything was great. Like, I remember seeing those buses, those yellow school buses.
Yeah.
With those stop signs and all that stuff. I was like, dude, that's just like in the movies, And it was because you see that, you grow up and
You
you
don't
have
yellow
like
school
American
buses?
music, you have American like
Right.
movies and all that, Hollywood
There's no
and
yellow
stuff.
school buses in Germany?
No.
What color
You
are
don't
they?
have school buses. Everyone
how do
uses.
people get to
walk
school?
to school or?
Yeah, I had to walk. I mean, I was not a normal case, but I had to walk 45 minutes back then.
Whoa!
I was walking 45
You can
minutes
tell your kids that.
there and back.
And it was
Yeah, it's like I mean,
uphill both ways.
yeah. When I talk about it now, it's like, dude, that's crazy. I sound like an old man, you know.
Yeah, that's
But-
wild.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, but then later I got a bike and all that stuff, you know, so that cut down the time. But yeah, people use public transportation, or the parents gotta
Right.
take them, you know.
Right.
So there's no like a school bus.
That's interesting. Like you're talking about the sort of the social structure or the welfare system being maybe bigger in Germany than the U.S., but the like no school buses. Like
Right.
that's like a social, like that's a free good. That
It
we
should
get
be,
in
yeah, it's true.
America
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
and
it's
maybe
interesting.
maybe less of a welfare state that we take for granted. You know,
It's
like,
true.
Of course, if you want to go there,
Right.
I mean, some families still drive their kids to school, or some kids walk to school, but there's always the school bus if parents don't want to or can't.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I guess it's also different because most towns here. I mean, like, you've got towns that are 10, 15 miles away that kid can't just walk to school.
Yeah.
And can't
Yeah.
take
Right.
public transportation.
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
probably
Right.
huge. I mean, because
there's piece. I mean, still in Minneapolis, there's school buses. So,
Right.
but especially here, you know, more small town life, you got to have something. Because, I mean, for me, my elementary and middle school that I went to was a half-hour drive. Like, it was 25 miles.
yeah.
There's
Yeah, I
no
can't- yeah.
there's no walking to that one.
Yeah. Yeah, I think part of it is also that Germany is or Berlin, it's not as violent, you know. Like when you go to like Minneapolis, you know, I mean, you gotta be afraid of, like, you know, being mugged and being.
There's guns in America.
There's guns, yeah, man. I mean, it's a big thing,
Sure,
you know. I mean,
yeah.
it's in Europe, guns. You know, no one has a gun. You know, so
Is it like
it's
completely
illegal.
illegal
Yeah,
to have a gun?
You can't. You're not allowed to have a gun. It's
So you're a criminal if you have a gun. You're part of the under.
yeah. It's very. I mean, I never knew anyone who has a gun.
So there's no hunting.
Wow.
There's no hunting.
There's
cult-
hunting. There's hunting.
So
But
do you-
again, Berlin, not so much.
Do you
like-
rent a gun then for that type of thing?
you know, if you're a
Some
hunter,
Americans are like, what do you do without a gun?
Yeah. How do you live without a gun?
I don't
They
have
had
a gun. I don't have a gun, so I don't really know.
you know, if you're a hunter, you know, I mean, you gotta get a special permit and all that
Sure.
stuff, you know, and prove it and all.
And I
these things.
suppose, I mean, it's like a single shot.
Yeah, you would
bolt
get a
action
rifle or something like that,
right?
you know.
Like-
But I mean, I don't even know if you can. I mean, I don't know if you can get a handgun, you know.
right.
I
It's
mean,
not like
Right.
you walk into Walmart and you're like,
Yeah,
here's
here
the
you
guns.
can.
10%
Yeah,
of the
like-
people here have guns.
maybe more.
Yeah,
I even have guns.
right.
Yeah.
You do?
Are you packing right now, David?
No, I don't have any handguns.
Cowboys and Unicorns podcast. David's the cowboy.
My
I'm
6-shooter
the
here.
unicorn.
No, like I grew up. Well, not grew up, but like when I moved to Minnesota.
Yeah.
I mean, it was North Country, all woods and lakes.
Woods and
so
lakes.
hunting and fishing is like, that's what you do to pass time. And, like,
Right.
still even around here, that's kind of
Yeah.
the culture.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like much more up there. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, even part of like the tourist industry, it's like hunting season.
It's built on that.
Right.
Mm.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you make a ton of money on people from all over the state
Mm.
go up to that, you know, to the
Yeah.
Walker area, to that small area just to go hunt. So,
Mm.
Northern Minnesota.
Yeah.
Basically Canada.
yeah, basically. Pretty close. No moose in there, but, you know.
Right.
Yeah, man, that was
Oh, go ahead.
there was a huge switch for me, like you know, seeing like all those people hunting on fishing and all that stuff, you know. It's a big change for me, and you know, not being familiar with all that stuff, you
Right.
know, it's a whole different way of living.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like even how people spend the summers here and all that stuff, you know, it's a complete different way of living.
Yeah.
So, like,
know,
there's no
so-
going to the lake
Yeah.
when you're in Berlin. Really.
Yeah, you can go to the lake, you know, you go
Okay.
swimming and stuff like that,
Okay.
you know, but
But the lake is polluted and you'll
it is, man, it is. I mean, we're growing
grow
up,
a
man.
third arm if you go
Yeah.
swimming.
And part of that's just
All these
country
dead
versus
fish in
rural.
there.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways. I mean,
Right.
yeah, it might just be apples to oranges. I mean, probably most kids who grow up inner city in in the States
Yeah, they might.
don't
They might.
hunt and
They
fish.
might really be part of it.
Also,
It's
So-
like it was like a double culture shock, you know. I mean, because I came from a
Right.
big city to a really small country community.
yeah,
you know?
like
Yeah.
if you need to go grocery shopping, you got to drive an hour.
Right, right. So that, man, to be honest, that took a while to get
Yeah.
used to, you know.
That's all I've ever known. Like since I was, at least since I moved to Minnesota, like Walmart's an hour away.
Yeah.
yeah.
David, how far out of you guys were like an hour away from Sacramento or something when you were in
Yeah,
California?
right between Sacramento and Lake Tahoe.
Okay.
So Placerville is what the town's
Right.
called. I was born in Sacramento.
And Lake Tahoe's, that's Nevada, right?
No, that's
No?
Nope. That's like it's actually close to like the Redwood Forest and actually
Okay.
to
Okay.
Redding. Like it's up that direction.
Oh, okay.
So that's super beautiful, though. I mean, that's you drive. If you drove about an hour, so it was like right in between, an hour to Sacramento, hour to Lake Tahoe, and I mean, you get up there and they get like 8 feet of snow and all the snowboarding and all
Right.
that stuff. But
Right.
Do you guys have palm trees over there?
no,
No.
No.
Isn't that California?
yeah, but
was-
that's coastal. Like
Oh,
if you
I
get
see.
There's a few.
there's some like especially if you get a
There's
little more
palm trees
south
in
and a
Redding when
little-
I lived there.
yeah,
little bit.
because isn't that closer to the coast though, or
That's
not
about
really?
2.5 hours from the coast.
Okay.
I mean, random
Right.
palm trees that probably just they can grow. So
Yeah, maybe
something-
they planted them or
Yeah.
something just to like it's California. There's palm trees.
Hey, at the In and Out,
Yeah.
Yeah, in and out. That's the
gotta
best.
have the crossing palm trees.
but
Have
yeah,
you ever had In and Out?
No.
Oh, man.
Sometimes
No.
if you're ever on the West Coast,
yeah, you have to
you
go.
gotta go.
Is
to
it good,
In-N-Out.
yeah?
It's great. It's like McDonald's prices for double the quality.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you miss California?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I miss California. Yeah, I don't like the snow. I don't like the winter. Born and raised in Minnesota, but yeah. I remember I had an epiphany when I probably said this before, but like when I was 16, and I was like, wow, someday I don't have to live here. So I moved to California for 7 months, and then I moved back.
For love,
For love, man.
Yeah.
It's worth it.
Mister. I'm moving away, swearing off women. Never mind. I'm gonna get a girlfriend right before I move to California.
And I'm gonna move back.
Yeah, that's how it goes in life. I mean, life is
Right.
unpredictable, man. I was just talking with my wife earlier before I came here, and it's like, you know, all the things I would have done different now, you know. But it's like, you know, I mean, when you get older, it's like the things you do now because you have the experience
Yeah.
of like
right.
the mistakes you did when you were younger.
And I mean, if you went back and you lived life like learning from all your mistakes, like it sounds grand, but your life would probably be kind of boring,
Yeah,
right?
it's true. That's
Like-
true.
You probably just make different mistakes.
Yeah, that's
you-
true.
You'd go to a whole new level of mistakes.
yeah.
and-
Yeah, I'm sure, you know, man, when I'm 50, I'll be like, man, you know, this 30-year-old kid, I mean, I don't know what he was thinking, you know.
Like knowing what I know now, like pipes and cigars and beer are great. If I went back and started living my childhood that way,
Yeah.
be problematic.
Yeah, there's a timing to life too.
Definitely.
I had an internship when I was like 14, 15 and stuff like that. And back then was the time where we got into cigars, like into these cheap ones, you know. Where like this phase, you know, of like smoking really cheap cigars. You would always get them like one
At
the gas
age of
station.
14.
14, 15, 16, something like that, you know.
All right.
So I mean, you see, it's different, you know, because the drinking age over there is 16, you know. So it's
Right.
like people here, you get ID'd for everything, but over there you don't, you know. It's just they just sell you stuff, no one cares.
Sure.
Right.
So
Here you have to get an older person to go buy it for you.
yeah. So I remember I had this internship where it was this media company, right? They're producing like the show or something like that.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, it was fun. So everyone was smoking, you know, everyone was smoking cigarettes, right? So one day, you know, it was like 2 week thing, you know, and one day I show up there, right, and I have a cigar, you know, and I like, you know, light it up, you know, and I do my smoking thing, you know, and you know, when you like, you know, you feel cool and stuff like that, right? And I
You're
remember,
badass.
yeah. So people are looking at me strange, you know, people that I'm working with, but they were kids too, you know, so they didn't say anything. But then my boss, she came in, and she like started yelling at me. She was like, "How can you do that? Smoking a cigar, blah blah blah," and she kicked me out. She kicked me out of the internship, man.
Oh, wow.
It was
Bummer.
only a 2 weeks internship. but yeah, I mean, she was.
Was this like a week into the internship or a couple
Huh?
days? Like
What?
how far into the internship were you before?
It was maybe 1.5 weeks or something like that.
Okay.
And then
So you
And
were
then-
almost done.
it was almost, yeah. I mean,
You
2
learned
weeks.
everything. You needed
Right,
to
right.
know.
I mean, all I did was answering fan posts, you know. I mean, it was like
Online
after-
or?
No, it was no, that was that was before the internet was huge. You know?
Carrier pigeons.
No, there was actually fan letters.
Oh wow.
So mostly what they wanted was like autographs, you know.
So you just autographed for the people?
No. They had like these cards and they were printed,
Okay.
and the actors, they signed it beforehand, so we would just package it up and send it back.
Okay.
And that was the first week. And the second week they didn't really have anything to do for us, so they gave us like these odd jobs,
Go clean the
And-
toilets.
Yeah, right. And yeah, I don't know what they did the last couple of days, but
They did not smoke cigars. You know that.
right. Yeah, it was a fun time.
So, Mike, you have like a blog and you're writing a book.
I do. Yeah.
What's
yeah,
that all
just-
about?
Well, the blog is about it's a Christian blog,
Okay.
and it's about its main the tagline basically is Christianity for warriors. And what I feel Christianity is like in Europe and here the same. It's very much focused on women. So when you go into a service, it's very much female focused. It's it doesn't address all of the aspects of the gospel that are that would speak to men, I feel. And my goal with that blog is to change that. So I write about I think the heart of every man is to be a warrior. And you look around America or any place, really, in the Western world, and you don't really see warriors. You see, especially in the church, you see people that are, weak is maybe the wrong way to put it, but
Passive maybe?
passive is, I think,
Timid, yeah.
yeah, timid, and with the blog, I'm trying to speak to the heart of men, to embrace the warrior side of Christianity, because it's hard, man. I mean, I feel you really have to be a strong man in order to live out Christianity, in a way that is that really represents Christ in an authentic way.
Okay. Yeah.
So, oftentimes we hear like, you gotta show the other cheek, right? And
Right.
in the church, it's often being interpreted as, you just gotta take anything, right? Anyone says anything, you just cover it up with grace. That's how we call it.
Put some hyper grace on it.
we cover it up with grace, and we don't do anything about it. Well, and I think that's the wrong approach. I think as Christian men we are called to stand up to social issues and stuff like that. And even living a Christian life is really, I feel it's one of the most difficult things you can do as a man, because first of all you get a lot of opposition living as a real Christian man. And I think it's very, very challenging, especially in the culture that we live in. So, all that stuff I try to address with my blog. And
So were you always a Christian?
well, my parents were they converted. They became Christians before I was born. So I grew up in the church
Right.
until maybe you always reach a certain age. I mean, it's different for everyone, but eventually you start thinking for yourself,
Right.
I mean, until 13, 14.
You started smoking cigars and then you weren't.
I started smoking cigars,
anymore.
man. That that messed me up.
Right. Kicked out of internships. Who knows what else?
The thing is that once I started thinking for myself, I felt that a lot of the churches is and I'm talking about my own experience, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
it's the experience that I had. There was a lot of hypocrisy, a lot of hypocrisy, and a lot of people just being out for. The church that I was in was a church that is. It was one of those. In Berlin was the biggest church that they had. It was a mega church, but it had like 600 people, maybe 700 people or so.
Okay.
So for that standards, for Berlin, it was pretty
Okay.
big because it's an atheistic country,
Yeah.
But the people in there, they were the same like anyone else,
Mm-hmm.
They were after money, they were after whatever.
Sure.
But every time they would go to church, the pastor preached about you gotta give, and you get in return, and you get money and all that stuff. And then eventually I was like, what am I even doing here? What am I doing in church? It's like,
What's the purpose?
what's the purpose? What's so I was thinking and I mean it's not it's the thought process of a child,
Yeah.
of a young kid,
Right.
and then plus you have all the temptations that the world offers you, especially in the city. So I mean, you have clubs and all these things, and you're in a regular school, so you have friends, that of course, I mean, no one is a Christian, so you start to hang out with the wrong crowd, and you start
Uh-huh.
liking it, and then
Yeah.
and then combine those two things together, and you have a kid that is like just not interested at all in religion. I want to live the good life.
Yeah. Do you think like some of your blog and like your perspective of like masculinity and the need for it within the church like comes from like, did you have that realization as a kid where you're just like, these people are just like weak, fake, timid, like men aren't actually men and masculine if they're a Christian, and so I hate it, I'm gonna go do my own thing, and
Yeah.
now you're coming back and trying to bring that perspective, or is that more of a new realization and it didn't really factor into your thought process?
No, I think there was a huge aspect,
Sure.
because Christians back then I thought of them as would be,
Yep.
Right.
and I really didn't want to have anything to do with them, and back then Berlin has a big Muslim population, and a lot of my friends were Muslims, so that culture is a lot different than what you from the average German, I would say, because their masculinity, or like the sense of strength in a man is really dominant, and you like
Okay.
try to be the man, in everything you do, anything you do. So I think I was very, very much impacted, by all that stuff, and then it's just
Man, that's
it's,
interesting.
it's they had the culture of I mean, it's funny because there are churches in the States too, famous ones that proclaim the culture of honor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was actually something that spoke to me a lot. It's honor, honor
Right.
and respect, and man, you say something against me, you have a problem, So whereas Christians, they'll be like, oh, whatever, it's okay, like being afraid and stuff like that. But no, they're like, I got to protect my honor. I got to protect, people have to respect me and all that stuff. And all that stuff spoke to me,
Yeah. Yeah.
So I went with those guys. A lot of my like younger years. So yeah, I think definitely, to answer your question, definitely impacted me a lot in the way that I see life now, because I think every culture has things that you can draw from. I mean,
Right.
and now I'm drawing also from the German culture, but I hated it. I hated the German culture also because natively I'm not a German. I'm a Czech, originally.
Okay. Yeah.
So growing up, I had this connection to foreigners, so this connection to people that are different, because like my parents, I mean, they came
Because
as
they were immigrants, right?
they were immigrants.
Right.
They were. I mean, they were illegals actually. They fled from communism,
Okay.
and they fled over and they didn't know a single word of German. And so it was difficult when I was growing up, because when I spoke German, I kind of, it's kind of like I speak English now. You could hear that I'm not a native.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So back there where I was growing up, there was like lots of racism going on and stuff like that. And there, I mean, most people are white in that area anyway. But I definitely experienced lots of that racism and stuff like that. And as a kid, you kind of like just push away all that stuff that kind of hurts you, right? So I was naturally drawn to everyone who's not a German.
Okay. Yeah.
And yeah, I think this impacted me a lot. And I mean I hated everything that had to do with Germany. Maybe that was also part of the reason why I wanted to always leave, and in the end, why I left.
right.
So a lot of hurt and pain, that I'm actually working through, I mean,
Right,
when I'm here, when I'm trying to find my own identity here,
Yeah.
So like it's this whole questions of who am I, and all these kind of things.
Yeah. You're an existential guy.
Yeah. I think these kind of questions I think about, especially in the past, I thought about that a lot. It's like a lot of the things that I did is like was driven by the question is well, is there a God or not?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because every time I was thinking about God, I always had this question in my mind that if there's no God, really the all the rules and all the laws and everything that is set up by man, it's really useless. The only thing you got to do is to be smart about things, because
You just gotta work the system, and then
you got to work the system, because if there's no God, all you got to do is and then again you're impacted by the by the culture that you live in, which was an atheistic culture, where no one believed in God. So you really try to so I was really thinking that everything that I live in, my whole life is really it's really governed by me, but only by me. So I just have to be smart about the rules, And if I break the rules, what do I'm really breaking? I'm breaking rules that are set up by other human beings, So
Right.
the moral standard by another human being for me, it's just their standard. And I always like to give a drastic example when I talk about that.
Yeah.
But it reflects into every area of your life. And the example that I like to give is if I go out and kill someone,
Mhm.
what really punishes me, if I get caught, is the moral understanding of a culture that I live in. Say, the German culture says, okay, it is bad to kill another human
Right.
being.
And most
Right.
cultures, right?
Most cultures, yeah,
Right.
most cultures.
So you're saying like, if that's a man-made thing, what's the point? If
Exactly,
it's
exactly.
If it's
Like-
just
like if
people
I-
in power coming up with.
Exactly. If I killed someone, the only person that says that it's wrong is other human beings.
And God.
Exactly, but that's the point. That's
Right.
the point. That's the
Right.
point. That's the point. And that's what always like got me back and forth. Like, if there's a God, then there's a moral law, and then all these things apply, and they have all consequences. But if there's no God,
Right.
then all of that stuff is
what's
is,
the point?
worthless. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was always this, growing up in the church, so having a moral upbringing,
Yep.
or like a moral code, that my parents tried to
Instill.
instill onto me. Yeah, no, but inside, I was at war, because what is good really is just what your understanding of good is. It doesn't mean that it's my understanding of good.
Yeah.
So yeah, that impacted me a lot, and I was drawn back and forth for many years with that.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting context that you're you're in a country born to immigrants from another country. You've got a Muslim population, a Christian upbringing, an atheistic culture, and you're sort of trying to find, and sort of and you've got a passion to live life to its fullest, to not sort of succumb to one, out of all these cultures, whether it's the lame Christian culture, the tame, the tameness that the Christian culture around you is, perpetuating, or the atheistic culture, or the, Muslim machismo or whatever. You're trying to figure out what is truth. You know what I mean? Like what sort of standard. So that's kind of part of your journey.
That's true. Yeah, definitely. And for me, with writing that blog, for me, I definitely determined for myself that there is a God, right? I mean, I went to a mission school to find out if there's really a God. My brother, he got me to this conference, and it was a missions conference, and I was like, to this day, I don't know why I went, but I did go. And
this is as a teenager, or as you're 18 or 20?
Yeah, man, I was like, I was in the military back then.
Okay.
Back then there was there was 9 months that you had to do. Like every male had to go to the military. So I was after school, after my high school, and I was like maybe 20 or 21 or something like that. And my plan was to go to college or something like that and study. But then I went to this thing, and they were talking about radical Christianity and all that stuff, right? And I was thinking, if I want to find out if there's a God, then that's the best place to do it. Like the most, for me at that point, the most extreme display of Christianity, and for me really to find out for myself if God is real or not. Because for me, that was the fundamental question if I want to pursue God. Because I didn't like the Christian culture, right?
Right.
But
right.
I didn't like is a very weak word. I hated it.
Yeah.
I hated it.
So and you hated it, so you threw yourself into it.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And that sort of goes almost, not to put words in your mouth, but sort of with the maybe like the passion that you carry, or the you seem like somebody who's like wholehearted, and so not really willing to just accept something because it's the status quo.
Yeah, that's true.
And so you're like, well, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it all in, or whether that be atheism or that be Christianity or whatever I'm gonna do with my life.
Yeah,
I'm going to throw myself into it to see whether it's true, or to test the veracity of it.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's why I that's always what helped me, in my struggles, I would say, in my hard times, and is that the thought that you could go back to whatever you were doing, but God is real, So everything you do doesn't have a purpose, if you go back to whatever, partying and anything, any of that stuff, if God is real, none of that stuff really has a purpose. And still, to this day, and I think in the future also, that is what will always drive me, is the knowledge that God is real for me, first of all. Second of all, I'll be accountable for my actions, and I'll stand before God. And just this knowing, I'll be accountable for my actions, what I did here on this world, how I treated the laws, how I treated other people, how I just how I lived out my life, how I treated my kids, my wife, my family. All of that stuff is impacted for me personally by that single thought that God is real.
Yep.
Wow, it's definitely my motivation in life.
Wow.
For many things that I do.
Heartandgrowth.com.
Yeah, heartandgrowth.com.
Let's get some traffic going. There you
Yeah,
go.
man.
Check out Michael's blog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually you're talking about the book that I'm writing. That's actually what it's about. It's about all the pleasures that you can get in this life, and all those pleasures that well, not necessarily pleasures, but what this world has to offer. So what I'm writing about is relationships. I'm writing about the different religious systems. Especially what is now very common in Europe or in the Western world in general, especially in America too. Is this whole embrace of Buddhism. Which
How do you mean?
Well,
Or maybe just explain that a little bit.
Well, Buddhism, it's the core, or Hinduism, basically the embrace of different gods, that we all God. This whole idea that anything you do is right, So you can apply that to the LGBT movement, right? You can apply that to developing, just living out your life. In a way that you feel is right, because that's what's being promoted all over the Western world, is that you got to be yourself, and there's some truth in it, right? But a lot of the things, you embrace your sin as well, So it's a culture based on feelings. It's a culture based on what I personally think is right, not what the general. What is right, but what I personally think is right, or what I personally think is the way to live my life. So, that's one way, to look at or to live out your life that is promoted here in the United States. And I try to look at it and see if it will really bring you fulfillment. So
go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, these kind of topics, these kind of things that are really. What are we longing for as human beings, and what can actually fulfill us? So that's what it's all about.
So, quick question here, not to get too deep, not that we are pretty deep right now, but do you think part of that is, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but do you think part of that is a mistrust of, so if we're gonna set aside and go, okay, personal feelings and how I think I should live my life, and then using that as a guide for how I go about my business or my choices in life, and sort of rejecting that as the ultimate standard. Do you think some of that, like within your blog, is not trusting, like you don't trust your own decisions? Do you know what I mean? Like, do you think like a person, like if you just go with what you think is right, that you'll just end up like in the wrong place?
Yeah, you always have to answer the question, I believe, of why. You know,
right? You have
and
to know your
just
why.
and just the feeling. I like to. It's a good feeling to watch Netflix the whole day. And but this is the right thing.
Fair enough.
Right.
And you can.
Is that going to get you to where you want to be in the end?
Exactly, and you can bring that further. An affair with another woman. It feels good in the moment. Probably I never had an affair, right? But in theory, But
is it going to bring ultimate satisfaction?
Exactly. And with that, that's a simple question, because most people, I think, answer that, well, yeah, an affair will destroy your life, especially if you have a family,
Right.
But why are so many people doing it,
Right.
Why? They're seeking something that they don't have. So
Right.
what are they seeking?
Right.
What is it that we're longing for?
And I think for you, at least specifically, like that masculinity is a root, right? Of like, as a boy, you wanna fight, you wanna, be a cowboy, you wanna go, like you have those desires. But then growing up in the church, you felt like those were kind of like you're supposed to suppress those things because those are like not good, and instead be like weak and humble and right?
Exactly. Yeah.
One thing not to continue going for hours here,
No, it's fine.
but I've been kind of thinking about,
Long
I've
podcasts are the
personally
best.
been kind of contemplating like the whole masculinity, the whole Christian, like men are supposed to be masculine and here's what this looks like. And along your point of like so many things are cultural, I mean, I think masculinity is hard because really in a lot of ways that's a cultural concept.
Right.
Do you because it's like, I mean, there's guys who have no desire to go put on pads and go hit somebody and play football.
Definitely.
You know, like there's a whole lot of different
expressions of masculinity.
Or is it? Yeah.
Maybe,
like
I don't know if that's what you're
masculinity.
saying.
Yeah. Is it defined as like a warrior who's goes out onto the field of battle and wants to go cut someone's head off, like, or if you're a guy who doesn't have those feelings, like, does that mean that your masculinity's broken and something's wrong with you?
No,
like,
no. I think it depends on how you define war, you know, and
Right.
I don't think that, you know, I mean, obviously we live in a certain, you know, environment where, you know, I mean, I will not go and kill someone because they're not a Christian or something, right? I mean,
Right.
but it is a war to love people, you know. It is a war to, like, you know, I don't know, not to do revenge, you know, not to be revengeful, not to lie, not to steal, not to, you know. I mean, there are lots of things that, and I believe that is what I mean with war.
Yeah.
You know?
See, I was hoping you'd define it a little more, because it's like, when I think, I mean, when you grow up in the United States and you think masculinity, right? You think you go out, you prove yourself by having sex with anybody and everybody. You're the toughest guy. If anybody, you know, looks at your girlfriend, your wife, anybody looks at them sideways, like, you go knock their block off. And so, like, just for clarity and like to hear more of your perspective on that, like, I don't want someone to listen to this and be like, oh, so we're Christian people need to be masculine. Like, I think the Bible does define, like, there is a definition of like what is a man's purpose. Yeah. And I think that could be called like true masculinity. But in general, it's like, I don't think that most anybody has a healthy perspective of what masculinity is.
Right, you don't want to just adopt the culture of brute masculinity, or
no, definitely not.
But
definitely
I think you're making a good point that there's a certain strength of a man to raise a family and to stay true, you know, to one's wife and to love other people, and that takes more strength than being the hothead that goes off.
Definitely,
right.
I think especially what is being defined in our culture as strength, you know, like you said, Dave, you know, sleeping with other women and all that stuff. Really, what that is, it's not strength, it's weakness, or being a hothead. You know, really, what it means is that you can't control your emotions. You know, you can't.
Right, you don't have self-control.
You don't have self-control, and you're really weak. You know, because, you know, every time you explode, you know, I mean, all these things have consequences. You know. I mean, you know, you lose your job, you know, you lose your wife, you know, I mean, you stop, you know, I mean, all of these things happen because you can't control yourself, because you're hot at. And I mean, that is being seen in some ways as strength in our culture. Now, or even you know, sleeping with many women. I mean, that is really a weakness, you know, I mean, you can't control yourself. You got to be really strong in order to save yourself for marriage.
Right.
You know, I mean, especially in this age where you don't get married with 13 anymore. I mean, you get married with, like, you know, when you're older.
Until you're 30, yeah.
Yeah. That's why Christians get married so early, you know. I mean,
like, all right.
Facts only.
Been waiting for 21 years. Get married.
Well, that's true. But I believe that is real strength.
Okay.
You know,
yeah,
I believe that is real strength, you know, to stand up for what you really believe in, you know, not punching someone out, you know. I mean, that you know,
I mean, I relate to that so much because, like, personally, I think I think a man in general, like, most men have like this underlying, it's like, I love to fight. Right? When I was in middle school, like, And like when I watch UFC now, or I, like situations come up, like I get jazzed, the adrenaline goes, and I'm like, I would love to fight.
Yeah.
But it's like, I know that that's only going to have consequences, and it's the strength and the self-control to be like, okay, those are unhealthy personal desires that aren't going to, there's going to be no benefit that I'm going to reap from it. There's actually most likely going to be consequences.
Right.
But yeah, that's you're getting to the heart of that, and I think that's a super valuable, just like in general, because church culture, it kind of swings one way or the other. It's like culturally, masculinity is seen as like the exact opposite of what like a godly man is like. But let's redefine what Christian, healthy, godly masculinity looks like.
Yeah.
Right? Even mainstream culture, it can be, like you said, swing one way hardcore,
right,
or the other way, where it's some person who, the strong man who doesn't care what anybody thinks and has little to no compassion, versus the guy who just shuts up and does what he's told no matter what.
Yeah.
It's extremes on either side that in the end either aren't really beneficial and are sort of facades for the true strength of being a strong person.
Yeah.
Right.
Of being someone that is contributing, to their community, who's contributing to society, instead of taking away or sucking off of others.
Yeah.
Or is acting out of insecurity. How do you, how do you be someone who's creative and who is bringing a contribution to the people around you, instead of being destructive or complacent.
Right.
Yeah. And I think it's a good point what you said with insecurity, because in the end, I mean that's really what it is, right? It's because you feel below another person, so you're trying to like rev yourself up, and trying to display something,
right,
that will make you feel better,
right? Yeah, or on the opposite side of just
exactly.
shutting up and listening and just doing whatever your pastor says or whatever your boss says.
And then you justify it by saying, well, that's the Christian way to do. But really what you're doing is you're masking your fear.
Right.
You're masking your fear and you're like explaining it to yourself, and you're justifying it to yourself, because we have to justify it.
Yeah, and I don't think I think it's maybe even oversimplification to say it's the Christian thing to do. I think if you look at any person, like, there's Matt Chandler has this awesome sermon on how like men in general are prone to either selfish passivity or selfish aggression, right? Like, I'm going to sit on the couch and drink a beer and watch my Netflix show and, like, be completely passive to all the things that are going on that, like, I feel out of control with, and I don't want to be pushed around, so therefore I'm going to be passive, and I'm just going to, like, skate through life. Or selfish aggression of, you know what, I want it my way, I'm going to bully you, I'm going to, be as controlling and as,
not listen to anybody.
Right, bullheaded as I can be to prove, like, that I'm the man. I need to be respected. I need to be loved.
That I have worth.
Right, and I think where it comes down to with Christianity is when you actually understand your identity, like when you actually have a solid identity of here's who I am and Christ sees me in this way, right? Like, then outside of somebody actually like trying to assault someone who's close to me and my family, like, I don't need, like, somebody can say whatever they want to about me. My identity's firm, my character, the things that I walk out in my everyday life, like, I don't have to go, beat the crap out of you to prove that you're wrong, right? Or go head to head and have this huge confrontation, because my identity is firm in who I am.
Right.
And so
it's almost a question of like how you navigate operating in and living within institutions, like the institution of a church or the institution of a corporate workplace, or the institutions that are handed to you by society. And how do you, like you're talking about, understanding your own identity or maintaining your own, individuality within those institutions, while not completely giving yourself, without completely rebelling or completely giving in to either. I know I'm just taking the moderate view on
I
all
think
these points.
well, I think that's
it's
super valid.
It's difficult to navigate.
But I think that that if you really can embrace that, if Christ would live right now, I think he would be the standard for manliness, and and I also think that that if you can display that, I think that's also very valuable in culture, and I think culture will recognize that, because that is really what I believe. That is really what the culture is looking for, is real manliness that can only be found in Christianity, and that, just saying that is like this whole, you are exclusive, there are no other religions, there are no other ways to accomplish real masculinity outside of the faith in Jesus Christ.
Right. Yeah, I mean, when I was young and completely like not sure in my identity, like I thought I had to fight everybody to prove like, no, I'm not weak, no, I'm not any of these things. Yeah. Like when I hit the turning point in my life and started to actually see that people respected me was like when those, because if you're fighting, you're always going to have win the next fight in order to be sure, So like when I hit that turning point, it was like when one of those kids I had fought came up to me and I had won that fight, and then he wanted to prove it, like that he wanted to win this next fight, and I had found a new relationship in Christ and had hit a turning point, and he walks up to me and he hit me, and I just looked at him and was like, and he called me all these different things, pansy, pussy, whatever, right? And I was like, I'm not going to fight you, right? And he walked away. And, I mean, from that point, like literally, once I realized I didn't have to fight for these things, I just had to like live out the convictions and the things that I knew were important. Like I found people respect me more, right? Like if I don't agree with somebody, I don't have to prove myself to them. I mean, I can say, I love you, man. Like, I can, Dan and I don't agree on everything. We get together. I can say, I appreciate you, right? And I mean, when you don't have to be the person who proves themselves at every given corner, it actually shows that you actually are more sure and more convicted of what you believe, and people respect you a lot more for it.
That's
like
true.
They might not agree with you, but I mean, they're not going to come up to you and pick a fight over it because they're like, well, he obviously truly is convicted and believes that, and I can respect that he has chosen to live that way, right? So that's cool. Like, I respect things about you.
I think for me, like, it's maybe a little bit different than either of you two, but I'm not really like a fighter.
Right.
I'm never really tempted to, at least physically, prove myself to others. But I think that's a lesson that I've had to learn as far as just like an argumentation of the need to, letting go of that need to argue verbally or argue with logic for why the way I choose to live my life is the right way, and like you're saying, like being able to let people make their own decisions and not making them bend to your your principles or your standard,
or at least making sure that they know what you believe and that they at least have a solid like grasp of it. It's like, it's not like, that
being secure enough to listen to somebody else, and to take in what they're saying without retorting back or
Right.
without trying to
Right.
mold them into the way
Yeah.
I see the world.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is how you should see it too. And if you don't, you're illegitimate.
Right.
Trying to convince them.
Yeah. And so kind of being secure enough
Right.
to kind of let that go.
Right. Yeah, I think along those lines of like that most men tend to be either selfishly aggressive or selfishly passive. Like there's a fine line to learning. There's an importance for both
Mm.
in given times. Not the selfish part maybe necessarily, but like the aggressiveness and the passiveness.
Mhm.
It's like you have to know the times where like I can keep like I don't agree with something that somebody I'm at work with is saying.
Yeah.
I can keep my head down and
Yeah.
it like I'm not going to lose any sleep. That conversation doesn't need to happen. Like, and if we have that conversation, we're both going to lose respect for each other versus like, you know what? This isn't the time to do it. And then also on the flip side of like, there's times where you have to be upfront and confront, especially people you have
Right.
a relationship with of like, okay, like that is not, you're not living a healthy lifestyle or that's not okay behavior. And you sometimes do have to be
Yeah.
upfront and aggressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's that balance of not
Right.
seeking out confrontation
Right.
to, put your feathers out there and to say,
Right.
this is who I am and you better recognize it, but also not being afraid of confrontation.
Right.
If someone does challenge you, just say, no, this is,
Right.
To really stand your ground.
yeah,
right?
just
Yeah.
to stand your ground and to hold,
Right.
to hold convictions while also, remaining at peace with all men as much
Right.
as you can.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And striking that balance of, hey, I'm not backing down, but I'm also not going to engage in some stupid fight with you.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It's really a fine line. I mean,
Yeah.
and I think it's a learning process, man. I mean, and it really also depends on the situation.
Yeah.
You
Right.
know, who you
Yeah.
with, and I mean, it is. I mean, I think that I've many times done the wrong decision, but I
Right.
think it's where you either like go all in. All right, no man, I don't agree with that at all. And especially it was like the whole gender issues that are going around, right? I mean Christians, they have a bad rap, for like hating people, I mean that's what Christians are known for, right? But I mean obviously
It's the opposite of what it should be.
But but I mean I think that like from our church anyway, and from the people that I know, I wouldn't think that anyone that I know hates them, that anyone would hate them, but I also can't say that they would stand up, for their convictions, I mean I don't know, but it's a fine line to like either stand up, but stand up with love.
Right.
I
think it's important as well to find people, whether men or women, who are people of quiet strength and quiet conviction.
Yep.
Who have sort of set examples, and we probably need more of them,
Well,
and need to work to even become those people.
Yeah.
You set so much more of an example, and you can be so much more of a respected person by being able to. I mean, like I have plenty of people who I know, and I would call friends, who are homosexual, and like I'm not going to confront them on a daily basis and say like, "Hey, don't forget that I don't condone this behavior and that it's not okay," right? But it's the ability. I mean, they know where I stand.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to hang out. I'm happy to have you over for dinner. Like I'm happy to call you friend and do life together with you, and like trust that you know where my heart is at, and you don't have to have those conversations every single time that comes up. Now there's going to be times where maybe you have to have some good straightforward conversation with the people who you're in relationship with, but that's the other key, right? Like you can't just walk up to somebody who walks into your church who differs in opinion with you if you've never had coffee with them before or had them over for dinner, or had a conversation, and then say, "Hey man, I saw you do this, or I saw this on Facebook, and I can't agree with that. Like, though confrontations and like healthy debate outside of having relationship with that person, so they know your heart and they know that like above anything, like you love them and you want the best for them. Like those conversations never go well, no matter what it is, right? Whether it's a confrontation of character, or whether it's of your beliefs or your morals, like it's, unless you have relationship, those conversations can pretty much never go well.
But do you think from like the other side of that, if you fundamentally disagree with, say, someone's sexual orientation or something,
right,
and if you had that relationship and you made that known, don't you think like there's a I don't know how to want to say this, that fundamentally you're not recognizing them in some way, like you're not seeing them as.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, I think they have to know that your faith is very important to you, and But I mean,
I think
it's like I don't talk about my wife all the time, But you guys know that I love her, that I would do everything for her, for my family, and that's. But I don't say all the time that, she's great, she's awesome, and da 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 da. So,
I mean, it's like, it can apply to anything. I think that's the hard thing. Sexual orientation, gender, those things are such hot topics right now. It's just so touchy to go into that. And it's like, well, if you don't accept that, or you think that that I'm wrong, or that it's unhealthy, or that it's sin, then you aren't accepting me and you don't truly love me. But it goes down to every little, I have plenty of friends who struggled with pornography, right? And it's just because I will call that out as sin and I'm not going to encourage you in it, does not mean that I'm missing out on some deeper element of you, right? Or, because if a 18-year-old kid comes over to my house, I'm not going to offer him a beer because that's not legally, that's illegal. I'm not going to encourage that behavior, but that doesn't mean that I'm fundamentally saying I am choosing not to have a full relationship, to appreciate you, to invest in you, to love you, to call you a friend or a brother. I think it's just because it's such a hot topic. It's well, you're not a, you don't love me. You don't love me, right?
Yeah, I think if someone comes, into the church, and we'll say girlfriend, boyfriend, girlfriend, and they're sleeping with each other. It's the same sin, it's both sin, but again, we see that different, and I don't know if that's we're impacted by culture or whatever, we think it's it's a man with another man or a woman with another woman, that looks unnatural to our own eyes and all that stuff, but in the end, it comes down, it's the same sin.
But aren't those people you were talking earlier about not accepting what culture is handed down to you? Aren't those people in some ways fighting for legitimacy within a culture that doesn't recognize what their lifestyle is as legitimate?
I think, culture is if you go into culture, it's a whole nother level of the conversation, right? Because what we're talking about is what we believe, or biblically, what I personally believe to be fundamental truth, right? And it's to Michael's point, it's I have a sister who is dating an awesome guy. I love them both. They live together, right? They know that I don't encourage that. They come stay at my house, I'm not going to let them share a bed in my house. Now, they're both adults. They're choosing to make their decisions. If they want to go get a hotel so that they can share a room, okay. But just because I'm choosing to not actually, I'm going to draw a line and say, I don't think that this is healthy or right, doesn't mean that I don't love my sister and that I don't appreciate Devin and like that we can't have a healthy relationship and that like that it affects my ability to have a true healthy relationship with them.
Yeah.
And I see that at least personally in the same light as any of those other topics.
I think if you like we have the freedom to hold that position, but I think it's also like that will be a barrier. Like that relationship will only go so far. I mean, this is, I don't know, my opinion.
You're saying
but that relationship will only go so far
because they can eventually get married and then it's okay. Is that what you're saying? Or
no, I'm just saying like if you don't recognize their lifestyle as legitimate in some way, that will be a hamper to your relationship with
It
that
will
person.
be. I think it will be.
Yeah.
It will be.
Level.
Right.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, and
they're
then
not
it
going
will
to feel truly accepted 100%.
I mean, yeah, it will.
In
It
your
will.
eyes.
It will. Then, but I think that's the conflict between Christianity and what we believe, and what the world believes. And I think that's
Right,
the
there is a
whole
conflict
tension.
there.
Yeah, there's the tension. And I mean, me and Shaylin, we actually ran into that. Is that her cousin, right? I mean, he wants to marry. He got engaged with his boyfriend. Now we started talking like, what if they? What about the wedding? I mean, would we go on that? I don't know. We couldn't come to an answer. We couldn't come to a conclusion. Like, what would be the right decision to do? I mean,
But don't you think like if you're talking about like if the ultimate goal is compassion and loving people, you're gonna have to live with you're gonna have to love them throughout their decisions.
but
whether
you don't have
agree
to.
with them or
You
not.
don't have to
And-
accept their standard.
No, you don't have to accept their standard for your life, but don't you have to, if you're going to continue loving them, like if you chose not to go to a wedding, wouldn't there be some sort of rejection that you're giving to them in some way?
Yeah, I think along those lines, like if we were talking any sin's the same sin, it's kind of the same thing of like, so then do you not go to a bar because you're giving money towards a company that makes profit off of drunkenness? Like there's that piece of, well then what, I mean, do you go to Starbucks? Like if you're going to choose to that point of like, I love you, but I'm not going to go be a part of your wedding. Like, I think that then you have to take that into a whole nother perspective of everything else that you view as sin. Like, I'm not going to go be a part of any activity that could be on that same level.
Yeah. I mean, it's we like I said, we couldn't really come to a conclusion.
Yeah, no, it's just kind of an interesting. I mean, it's that like, I believe that tolerance is like a godly principle, like to tolerate people, to be able to live alongside them, to be able to still invest into them. That is, I mean, like, it's God's patience that leads us to repentance, like his coming alongside us no matter what we're going through. Like, is God gonna not attend their wedding? Like if we believe that God is a part of everything, is he gonna be like, I'll come back after like the ceremony and I'll be with you then until and be patient with you and try and work your heart around to see what's true and what's right, but because of that specific thing is like a proclamation of it, I can't be there and in support of it. Like attending something because you love somebody and because you support them as an individual and you love them and you want the best for them, and attending something because you're like, I don't think going to that is necessarily saying, hey, I'm endorsing this is okay, this is great, right? Like, I think that there's a difference there. But
yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll have to do another episode when they get married.
More on that later.
If you want to hear more straight white dudes discuss these issues, tune in next time.
Well,
this has been fun, guys.
yeah, it's been
Yeah.
good conversation.
Thanks, Michael, so much for for being willing to to join our podcast. That
thanks for
doesn't
having
have
me.
a lot of direction as far as topics go, but everybody should go check out heartandgrowth.com. That's my blog, and learn how to be a manly warrior Christian. Anybody else got anything else to add?
Nope, I think we're good. Signing off.
Thanks a lot, guys.
This is David.
This is Dan.
All right. Have a good
Bye.
night.